What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to week 4 of Community Permaculture. Stoked y'all are with us. This week, the debate on regenerative or sustainable animal agriculture. Is that even possible? Is that a thing? Or is that just some other cover-up for the meat industry to continue exploiting animals and the planet? We're going to talk about some subtleties of that very important debate. But to contextualize that, I want to go back and think a little bit about what we talked about last week. So, overall, well-meaning conservationists, global warming activists, and other concerned ecologists have in large part been focused, rightly so, on how human impacts have been destructive. So how modes we use to power our life processes, to get food, to get energy, to use water, essentially take extractively from this inherent store of goodness that nature has built up without replacing what has been taken. And in addition to just taking, we then put back pollution, essentially things that nature can't use or that are anti-life, that harm the life that exists. We insert this stuff into these formerly pristine environments. And to the extent that we're actually changing the physical dynamics of water, wind, gases, etc., to the point that we're throwing off the whole climatological cycle on which all of our life depends. So this is a view of a life form, in this case us, agricultural humanity or agricultural civilization, that is destroying the conditions of its own existence. And considering how much evidence there is to support this view that our form of life inherently does this, I think pointing out that our existence is essentially being one of taking right now as a civilization is understandable, it's necessary, right? So while this is an important step in the process of recognizing and reversing the damage we've done, I think this recognition, if it's repeated often enough, without examples to the contrary, without nuance, it can become an unquestioned and even unconsciously held assumption that the human presence and its attendant consumption is always and inherently extractive, and that essentially that reduction of our consumption, of our economic activity more broadly, and finally of our population is the only possible way we can restore balance to the Earth's ecology. We got to get rid of people and everything they do to heal the planet. That's a view that's the sort of genocidal edge of certain ecological forms of understanding. And I think in one sense it's true, right? Our global status quo is massively unsustainable. So this line of thought, I think, is right on one hand, but at the same time neglects to fundamentally recognize how many different ways of relating to ecology humans have had, especially in pre- or non-agricultural contexts. So as we did last time looking at California's indigenous land stewardship, helped us get a sense of how humans have found other ways of sustaining themselves while enhancing the landscapes and simultaneously meeting all their human needs. So we know it's possible, even for fairly large populations, all of this outside of the agricultural paradigm. We are fish swimming in that water, so it's understandable if we conflate our humanity with the particular form of humanity we've exercised. But as we saw last time, that's not the universal human, right? To be agriculturalists, extractors. So we know we have other things to look at, and I'm glad we got a chance to look at examples of that last week. Now, while scalability is a really important piece of this discussion because our population is not the size that it was when the California natives were doing their land management, I think this, shows us that this is available to us, and that the ways of conceiving ourselves and of our consumption as potentially being great forces for ecological regeneration and even expansion exist. The paradigms exist for that, right? The precedents exist for that. So while halting rampant consumption in the unsustainable extractive model is still a necessity, I think paying attention to these other modes gives us models of conceiving ourselves as potentially regenerative consumers even. So while last week we focused on sort of redeeming our view of ourselves in a sense and saying humanity can be helpful, we don't have to just destroy, or at least opening us up to the idea that our presence and our consumption patterns can be as healing as they can be destructive, this week we're going to explore a sort of similar debate regarding livestock. So are cows and their farts the real drivers of global warming? Put simply and stupidly, is greenhouse gas accounting the only or most important or most important factor we need to consider when deciding how to live ecologically? It's a really good question, and that sort of accounting dominates a lot of the debates. And some of the videos that we're going to watch actually talk about the history of why, our fixation on carbon fixation, is kind of the dominant narrative. And that goes back to Jimmy Carter's administration when he commissioned a report from the Scripps Institute to look at things. And they essentially just decided, even though water is a much more important greenhouse gas to look at in the whole hydrological cycle, they understood, or they thought that we couldn't even understand how humans could potentially impact that. We can see them burning fossil fuels, but we can't understand that, we can't make rain, we can't change the hydrological cycle. So they factored out water because it was too big or too hard to deal with. So if that greenhouse gas accounting is the only lens that we look at things through, probably having this many cows on the planet is really, really dangerous. And definitely how we're doing it now, they are totally, unquestionably dangerous. But can ruminants or other grazing animals be employed in a way which restores the land's ability to hold water and thus helps stabilize and build topsoil and repair the hydrological cycle and even move areas of land back towards reforestation? That's a very important and still slightly open question, although I'm a fan of the idea right now, but I think it's really important to consider alternatives. If they produce greenhouse gases, how can they be good, right? That's the kind of simple version of it. But we're getting out of that simplistic thinking and getting into a more subtle view of what's happening. So these are all important debates to have, considering the number of domesticated animals far exceeds the human population in terms of numbers and biomass. Some claim that using herd animals intelligently is one of the best means of regeneration available to us, and others that such herds are inherently a carbon liability and defending their use is a sham used to prop up industrial exploitation and assuage the consciousness of meat consumers. Others say that how we exploit or instead synergize with our animal partners can make all the difference in how we answer these questions. And I'm definitely on that team. I have a lot of things down here, but I'm sure that my selection reflects my preference, right? My belief, even though I'm vegan and I don't eat animals, that they're a crucial part of our restorative process and that we should use the existing animals that we have to regenerate grasslands. So know that going into the debate, and know that I'm going to be skewed, and please bring me contrary opinions, say, hey, I found this, I don't think it agrees with you, but I would love for y'all to bump me off that perch, because right now I'm kind of, after having been at a farm, I'm real convinced we need animals. Having an acre of soybeans is way worse than having an acre of all these different things, including animals. But there's a lot of arguments about zoonotic diseases. There's a ton I don't even get into here. So I need help filling out this debate is what I'm saying. But basically this week, we're going to look at the debate surrounding domesticated livestock. Is there a way to manage our relation with animals and their relation with the environment such that we are neither doing purely extractive agriculture nor purely conservationist rewilding, aka get rid of all the people, get rid of the animals, and just let nature do its thing, right? We learned last time how some natives saw that, right? You had wilderness that was created because forests were unmanaged, and in California at least, the lack of burning things has led to giant uncontrollable wildfires that destroy the native ecology, destroy the old growth trees, whereas the little small burn fires were actually keeping the conditions for those old growth trees to continue to exist and provide all the acorns, etc. So again, this is an important question, I think, so I'm going to rephrase this. Is there a way, or restate it, is there a way to manage our relation with animals and their relation with the environment such that we are neither doing purely extractive agriculture nor purely conservationist rewilding, but rather achieving a synthesis of the two? And this is what holistic management, planned grazing, rotational grazing, there's many names, reverse multi-paddock, there's a million ways that people call this stuff, but essentially moving animals around in ways that replicate natural migratory patterns, right? They don't stay on one piece of land and just eat everything there. They move, they get pushed, in this case, not by predators like wolves, but by electric fences and a farmer moving them. holistic management, the names are many, but all claim to be able to employ animals to simultaneously meet human needs and restore ecology. So the question is, open question, can such a method really meet human food needs while regenerating soil and contributing to climatological restabilization? What are the challenges and issues involved in it, and what else could this synthesis permit us to do, even if we can extend our logic, right? How do we continue to think creatively about what we can do with animals? So if, as we heard earlier, Jeremy Lent rightfully asks us to make a break with the fence-bound era of extractive agriculture in order to head in the direction of a more open ecological civilization, this holistic management idea seems to promise a way to move in that direction without a full break from the fence era, so to speak. So rather, there's a synthesis in here of domesticated and wild. As I said, we're reintroducing animal migration into existing desertified areas, which might involve some fencing for this replicated natural motion, right? Where the fences are used not to, as they were in the past, suppress nature's dynamics and keep all the animals in one place forever until they ate everything on the ground and just lived in their own poop. But rather to learn from and replicate what nature does, how the wildebeest get chased by the hyenas or whatever, and keep those savannas beautiful, right? So how to learn from and replicate them in the context of our existing land ownership and land use patterns, which are just covered in fences. We're covered in this fictional idea of people owning land. It's kind of insane, and it also sounds great. I kind of want to own some too. But it's an insane idea. Like, it doesn't even make sense. You didn't create it. Nobody had the power to give you that land, but that's what we have right now. So the question is this our best hope, or is this merely a way of preserving the status quo, preserving all those land, boundaries and land ownership and meat use or meat murder and all that, right? So I think meat is part of nature. So I didn't mean to. It was sort of a joke, sort of not. That's the debate this week, right? I think to answer this question intelligently, we need to gain a deeper understanding of the planet's life support system. So that's why we're going back again to this question of the hydrological cycle and the soil carbon sponge that mediates the hydrology, not just of the land, but influences the atmospheric and heat dynamics and even oceanic dynamics as well. So we're going to begin again going back to this idea in more detail of how does soil change the Earth's ability to hold water, and how does that change the whole climate? So there's maybe 27 minutes of two videos that really kind of explain with nice graphics and with some equations, even if you're into that, what this guy Walter Jenna, who I've been talking about, this Australian soil scientist, has been saying, that I think is really, really crucial to get our heads out of the sort of carbon myopia of it's just about carbon and global warming in that one way of describing it. So two really crucial videos, 27 minutes. Highly, highly recommend you study those. Give them a good shot. And then we're going to dive straight into one of the proponents, the most vocal proponents of regenerative grazing, this guy called Alan Savory. So he's a former, I believe, South African or Zimbabwean, colonial soldier, right? He was born in Africa, but definitely a problematic figure in many senses, right? Probably also a important figure who's done a lot of good from what I can see. So while I think some of his ideas are highly questionable in certain senses, in terms of people could say, oh, what is this, white landowning guy who's really not showing, scientific evidence for his claims, telling us how to save the world with beef cows. There's still something profound, and I think, in what he's saying. So even though, as I said, I'm not a meat eater right now, I do think even us vegans can get behind the idea of animals and large herds of animals, including herds from which cattle are culled for human consumption, to be part of the big picture earth-saving mechanism. Although you could say, hey, that's fundamentally ethically flawed, and therefore it's not going to create a good result. So yeah, anyways, I'm getting all into the debate. You can check this out, decide for yourself. There are then a couple videos on essentially debunking his ideas. There's a longer one of about 20 minutes that has some carbon myopia details, I would say, but you tell me what you think. I think there's definitely some great points in there. Then there's an article from the Sierra Club that's a critique of his work as well. And I think it's more than just carbon numbers. There's some conceptual and historical reasons to question what he's doing. But anyways, below as well, there's like 5 or 6 videos down there that go deeper into the debate. So if you get interested in the debate and you want to dive deeper, there are videos down there for you to explore. But wrapping up, I wanted to zoom back to our Long Beach situation and ground ourselves again, continue a sort of meditation on where do we live, what's it like here, how is that impacting us, and in this case offer some inspiration from a local superhero who's doing something about it that hopefully can inspire us to say, okay, cool, we're thinking about this big picture animal stuff, but if I live in a city right now, this seems pretty removed from the reality of our daily lives, even if it isn't, right? Even if we're constantly eating stuff that's produced in the fields right up the way, and they're all using animal manure, and everything we're eating is coming from this somehow. Even us vegans are eating stuff that's grown in cow poop, so it impacts all of us. It's literally making us up on the cellular level. It might seem like a bunch of abstract stuff that I can't deal with, and this video, Voice Waves Explains Long Beach Food Deserts, profiles the homie Sinai Kenfe. Shout out Sinai, man, great work he's been up to, including one of the things he's up to, he does many things, is look at his local food desert context and decide to do something about it. And this is his story of his growing up surrounded by fast food, and describing some of what Long Beach has to deal with, and showing how he took a step of his own volition and of his own taking responsibility, and yet collaborating with other people, with the help of other people, to do something about it. So I hope y'all get inspired by Sinai and his work, and thank you Voice Waves and Sinai for putting that stuff out there. We need more people like that, and we need to become those sort of people. So as we think about this big picture of philosophical debate about animals, let's remember we still got to eat today, and we're eating off of this system that exists right now. So we've got to square the circle, bring the big picture and the local picture together as much as possible. So yeah, that is week 4. Everything, not including the sort of extra videos, is about 1 hour and 13 minutes, so less than the length of a movie to watch through some of the basic stuff. You can read that article at your leisure. It's a probably 20-minute read maybe. So yeah, 1 hour and 30 something, all said and done. And then maybe another hour or so of debate videos. And I'm working on, keeping these manageable. Hopefully, let me know. Would love to hear feedback on what's helpful. If y'all are even watching these, if anyone has made it to the end of this video, do, send me word on like, yo, loving it, or not watching anything, but this one got me because blah, blah, blah. Or, hey, I really think you should talk about blah, blah, blah. Or, hey, check out this local person who's doing something cool. Would love to hear any of that from you. And thank you for watching. Thank you for caring about this enough to even sign up for the class. So, all right, y'all, stay cool. Peace.